Hey, what's up, Huddle Crew? Welcome to the family. Welcome to the podcast. We are here every Tuesday, 3 p.m. Central, discussing how to maintain forward progress in your flooring career. This week, we got some special guests with us. Rod Von Busch from CDI Flooring in Nashville. Is that correct? Is that
the we're in Louisville.
Louisville.
Mm-hmm.
Louisville, Kentucky. Jared with Uzine. Did I pronounce that right?
The Germans pronounce it Utzin. So
Uzine.
Utzin. And I'm out of Michigan, Indiana. I cover some Ohio and Kentucky as well.
Awesome. With me, as always, is Mr. Daniel and Jose Gonzalez of Preferred Flooring out of Grand Rapids, Michigan.
What's up, guys?
Welcome to the podcast. We are going to pick everybody's minds today and talk about handling large-scale commercial jobs. To kind of set this up a little bit, Rod is a commercial floor covering contractor. I own a commercial floor covering company as well. Daniel and Jose do their fair share of commercial floor covering up in Grand Rapids, and they are growing swiftly. So you got some experience on the channel here. I hope you're joining and ready to, maybe hear some war stories and hopefully prevent some pitfalls. But to set this up, we do work all over the nation, and I know Rod does as well. One of the biggest things that I think comes into mind when I'm thinking of when you talk about large scale commercial projects is all the moving parts, all the material deliveries and procurement and acclimation and schedules and general contractors. And then you got your subs or your employee installers, and all that has to work out really well for a job to go right. And there's plenty of times you have some hiccups in that process. I've yet to have what I would call a perfectly successful job, but finding those pitfalls and trying to build processes around them, work with really good crews. A lot of those things are what we'll talk about today. So Rod, welcome. Jared, welcome. Nice to have you here with us today. Yeah, we're going to give people just a few seconds here to introduce themselves and let some more people join the call. Rod, would you start us off, sir?
Sure.
Maybe give us a little bit of background on yourself.
Well, all right. So I'm Vice President of Operations for CDI Flooring here in Kentucky. And yes, we have an office in Nashville. I'm just not directly responsible for it, but we're a regional company. We have offices in Indianapolis, 2 here in Kentucky, and then the Nashville operation. And I think we're a little bit unique as flooring contractors go because we're also an ESOP, which means we're an employee-owned company, which is, we started on that path about 5 years ago, and it's been an interesting journey. But my background, I started out as an installer, started out on my knees, just like most of us have, and kind of grew into my role. I feel like I'm still growing into it. I've been doing it for almost 40 years, but I'm still learning, and every day brings new experiences. And I think that's the important part is as we're talking about setting up commercial jobs, I think the most important thing you can do is be proactive.
Yeah.
Meaning that.
Well, I want to give you some kudos for you've always been, since I've known you, a guy that is open and thoughtful and understands, like you never quit learning. It's a process that we get beat up a little bit out there on projects, and it's about learning and getting better, whether it's from a project perspective or a business perspective. You've always come off to me as the type of guy that is a kind of a lifetime learner. Well, would you kind of look at it that way?
Yeah, I will tell you that when I first went into business for myself and was just running a commercial workroom in Lincoln, Nebraska, I, like so many installers, really jumped in and decided I was going to do it for myself before I was really prepared. We all get antsy.
No, that never happens.
Imagine that. So I'd worked with the gentleman there that really didn't have much formal training himself, And so I'd worked for him for right at 5 years and got encouraged by family members and friends. You need to be doing this for yourself. So I stepped out on that cliff, and the first couple of years were a real struggle for me. And one of the ways that I survived was I hired some very talented people along the way, and I learned from them. And, to this day, I've got 70 some employees here at CDI across 4 states. And I will tell you that there's somebody always coming in with a fresh idea, something that at first you kind of go, well, I don't know how that will work. But if you'll take the time to invest in it, it's amazing. There's a lot of good ideas out there. You just have to figure out how to put the pieces together and modify them to fit the circumstances. But then they generally will move the needle. And so, always trying to learn from other people, because there's a lot of professionals in this industry that are smarter than I am, and I know it. And so I want to learn all I can from them.
Right. Have you ever learned anything from Roland? He says that you need to smile.
Roland? Yeah, I see that. Well, Roland and I have been buddies for a very long time through our connection with CFI, and we're practically brothers. We've been been together working on projects for years and years. And have I ever learned anything from Roland? Yes, I've learned that you cannot put enough information on your business card.
If you've ever gotten a business card from Roland, you'll understand that. So, Jared, tell us a little bit about how you got started, and maybe a little bit of background on, yourself and what brought you to flooring.
Well, I was in flooring for 25 years now. So I started as a ceramic installer. I worked my way through college installing ceramic. And then I went to distributor sales. And after that, I moved to Utseen. I've been there.
Hold on just a second, Jared. I hate to cut you off, but the feedback, we're going to do something here to try to reduce the feedback.
Like your gain said.
Bear with us, folks. We're trying to get the gain on Mr. Jose's mic down. So,
Did you turn the auto gain back off?
Yes.
All right, Jared,
Are we good now?
maybe pull the mic towards you if that's possible.
Sure. Are we good now?
Just talk a little. Yeah, that sounds better.
There we go. So I don't need to shout in this thing. This has got a pretty good gain.
That's
I like it.
Yeah. All you gotta do is talk right there, and you sound like the sexy podcaster right now. So you're ready to roll.
You got that
Yeah,
radio
so I started in flooring. I was 99 maybe, and as a ceramic installer, I installed my way through college. And then I moved to distributor sales for 7-8 years. And then after that, I've been with Utseen now for 8 years. So in technical sales. So that's kind of the Cliff Notes version. So I've installed a bunch of different types of flooring, and I've seen a lot of really horrible jobs. So and the one thing that I picked up is, learning is the key. I find that every time I go to training, even our trainings, that I learn something new every time. And I've been in the industry for, 25 years. I've been technical rep for 8. So just the fact you can pick up little details, and you just got to understand that you don't know everything. And, just one little detail that you pick up, and just have the humility to admit that you didn't know it before, and now you know it now. So.
Yeah, we talk about that a lot on the podcast here. Is we've had some crews that, have been in the flooring, been doing it for 20, 25 years,
30,
not
30.
certified.
It's always 30,
Yeah.
30.
Always
Yeah,
30.
I think that depends on what
always
portion
30.
of the country you're in. It's like 20 around here is
Okay, all right.
that thing. But what was interesting is we sent 2 guys, and they were good installers, but they went through R1, R2, so they could get into the into C1 and C2. And when they left those certifications, they both came back and were like, man, I didn't know what I didn't know. And I tell that story a lot, but it's true. These guys were good installers, but they had room to improve. They were humble enough that I finally got them into several certification classes, and they were blown away with what they learned. I see that a lot with installers, as well as, people like yourself who believe in learning, and you find something out new that might just change your outlook a little bit. So
Yeah, and we end up on a lot of large projects and stuff out personally on those projects, just because like you want to make sure those projects go well and you don't have any hiccups, and that the crews are all trained properly. And you run into so many crews that aren't trained properly. You have to learn how to basically tell them and break it to them that what they've been doing wrong for the last 25 years, you can now tell them how to do it right in a way that doesn't make them feel, embarrassed or belittled and any of that. So
that pretty much sums up how Jared and I met. Thank you for sharing that.
All right, well, let's get into some of the stuff. We got some folks on. I mean, right out of the gate.
Let me follow up Jared's comment, because it's
Sure.
touching on something that I think needs to be said, and that is, we all hear day in and day out about the shortage of installers. Okay, we know we don't have enough to go around, but what people don't talk enough about is the undertrained installers that have been in this industry for years, mm-hmm. that really need to elevate their game, and the opportunities for them moving forward, and how much more money they could make, and how much more efficient they could be with their time if they would invest a little bit more in their careers. And I don't hear spoken often enough about that issue, because it is absolutely true. We need more young people entering the industry, but it's just important to me that the people that are here have access to upgrading their skills. So,
amen. And
I agree.
That's a necessary thing for the new. If new guys come in, I had a talk about this with CFI and with FCEF and these folks. I said, yeah, it's important that we get new people in, but if we don't still focus on making sure that the current pool of installers are trained, who do you think these new guys end up with? And then we're just diluting kind of mediocre skills even more. And I think that's kind of the one of the main problems of the industry is, once the unions kind of started faltering off in the trainings, you got grandpa that was union, journeyman installer, and then maybe his son wasn't, but he taught his son. And so he absorbed a lot of that. And then he taught his nephew. And before you know it, it gets diluted so much, and people finding their own little shortcuts. Before you know it, it doesn't, the way of installation doesn't even resemble the way the grandpa used to do it. And we have to continue to push for certifications, push for trainings, encourage people to go get those, and still right in line with that, keep working towards bringing in new guys, because we obviously eventually are going to run out, because people are going to age out. So
that's right.
Well, you talk about aging out and stuff, and then the guys that are in it right now, I think like the FCEF and what they do is amazing, right? Trying to bring in new people, but that just leaves us, fending for ourselves, so to speak, to where there's no programs that are offering us any type of funds to help us out, when, like Eduardo says, it is an investment. It's quite an investment. Things aren't cheap, and we're just not paid well enough as we should be in order to get the training that we need. A lot of guys are going to want to just focus on the project that they're on instead of going to get this training because they can't afford it. And that's just the industry that we're in right now.
Well, I think part of that is price follows skill, though.
How many hours do we have to talk about this? Because this could go on for a couple of days.
100%.
Yeah, it's a pretty complicated question that you just asked. But sorry, Paul, go ahead.
No, I think it, price will follow skill. Eventually that turns around, and, I've speak of my uncle quite often, who was a superintendent, but a carpenter and a superintendent, and he did great. I mean, he was did it for 35, 40 years or whatever. And his skill set created a great lifestyle for him and his family. But as skill gets diluted, that's where pricing comes a problem. It's not just that the prices that are out there are too low and that, I mean, certainly we all want to see prices rise with flooring installation within the industry. But at the same time, when you're bidding jobs and you're doing that stuff, everybody on this call knows what that's like. You have to bid in a competitive manner. And you can want to pay somebody a lot more, but the fact is you're constrained by what the market allows. A systematic approach to it, probably the chance to plug Go Career's hammer rating here, is the fact that if you're awarding work based on the skill, and what we found, I mean, there's a lot of guys out there that have very low hammer ratings, if any, and then there's some really standouts. The truth is the more people that are on there that are trying to increase their hammer rating and increase their profile, then you're bringing that skill back in. And all I can tell you is the data shows that the higher hammer rated guys make more money. They don't only do more volume, they get paid more. I wouldn't say command whatever they want, but they certainly, if you've dealt with a really good guy, and then I'm gonna get us away from labor, or we're gonna go down a rabbit hole for a while. But if you deal with a really good guy that takes care of your commercial job really well and is a great communicator, you don't have to go out to the job site quite as often. They're not prima donnas. They just take care of your project and understand what customer service is and how to treat your GC and how to treat the superintendent. When that happens, I will pay that guy more because it may come out of my profit at that point, but at the end of the day, I'm spending my profit either on overhead or on that labor. And if I spend a little bit of my profit on that labor because they take away from my overhead, that's kind of how I look at it. And that's part of maturing into our conversation about handling large scale commercial projects or large scale commercial.
Let me address the value of having a subcontractor that really performs at the level you just described. You're 100% right. I can pay a guy a little bit more money than the going rate if I know I'm not going to have to. I hate the word babysit, but I'm not going to have to go out there.
But you're right, it's babysit. That's the only right word there.
If I don't have to go out there and supervise his quality, I don't have to go out there and make sure that he's staying on schedule, that he's communicating his needs and looking ahead to see what he's going to need in the upcoming days. All those things, if that guy can perform at that level, he is certainly worth his weight in gold. And I don't know, I'm going to tell you, those are the guys that, as I'm putting together work schedules, they're the ones that get the prime job. They're the ones that get and they should be rewarded. They should be rewarded. So, at any given moment, we probably employ 70 or 80 subcontractors around Kentucky and Ohio and Indiana. Okay. And it is amazing the conversations I find myself in where somebody's going, well, how come they got that job? And how come they got that? And it's really easy to explain why, but they always want to challenge that. And so, the important thing, if you really want to grow your business, put your ego on a shelf for a while. Set that aside. Admit for a while that you don't know everything and listen to the people that have been in it longer and understand how things work. Build relationships with people that are smart, that understand. And it's amazing how far that'll take you. But, to go out there I had an installer, and I certainly won't mention his name, great guy, and have a lot of fun with him. We go play golf occasionally, and he does good work, but he's been trying to grow his business. And, I bet everybody on this call has been in that situation where you're trying to transition into a business owner and getting off your knees and wanting to supervise and wanting to go bid more work and and you're now relying on guys that are less talented than yourself to go perform the day in and day out stuff. And so we had a problem on a school he was working on, and I called him in and I said, we've got you scheduled for 2 jobs coming up, and because of some movement in the schedule, you can't do both. He said, well, why can't I? I've got enough manpower. I said, you don't have enough supervision. That was not a fun conversation to have, because in his mind, and this was his response, why are you treating me like that? I always take care of my problems.
Yeah. Well,
the problem is that you have too many problems.
I was going to say.
Well, that goes back to the conversation that we had earlier today with the CCS up, and it wasn't about work. It was actually about baseball and recognizing when individuals recognize when
I think you got Daniel running to your rescue, because we're still having trouble with your mic.
Yeah, we're having some problems hearing you there, Jose. We'll bring you back on here in a sec. See if Daniel can get you lined out.
It's his computer. Mm-hmm.
Sorry about the technical difficulties, but if you're on the call right now, one of the things I want to bring up here is that what Rod just said is the bottom line is it's not just your ability to install a particular flooring. It's your ability to communicate. It's your ability to be professional. It's your ability to set up your projects and your labor and your guys and make sure they're trained. We talk about this a lot on the huddle is if you are a labor provider and you're going to start supervising, those people should be W-2s. Let's not, one of the hardest things to deal with is 1099s going to 1099s, going to 1099s, going to 1099s. Before you know it, the guy that's actually doing the work is making squat. That's the problem. Keep it. If you own a company as a labor provider, your guys should be employees, W-2s of your company, and then you sub from other flooring companies or builders or whatever you want. But at some point, the 1099 train down to the bottom has to stop. And that's one of the problems that is created, or one of the situations that have created so many problems. So anyway, can you try that again, Jose? And I'll cut you off quick if you're not sounding too well. Can you say what you were going to say, sir? I don't even know if he can hear me now. All right, moving on.
Poor Jose.
So Daniel, in your guys' business, when you guys are doing a large scale project, labor, what does it look like to be working with another flooring company when you are doing labor only? I know you guys don't do that a ton anymore, but when you do, what does it mean? Those soft skills I mentioned, like what does that look like for you guys?
I mean, I think Rod said it best when he says you don't have to babysit someone, right? And that's really what we push and what we provide. So I just got a call from one of the local high schools, and they said, they got our information from one of the GCs. And, he called me probably an hour after that and was like, yeah, I gave him your number. I told him that you guys are the only people that I trust to be able to do this project and not have to be babysat. Those were his exact words. And that's really what it comes down to is how can you put all the information out for someone, hand it over to them, and trust them that they're going to get the project done the way that it needs to be done without having to call you every 5 minutes. Hey, should I do it like this? Hey, this is happening. What's going on? It's that's really the value that you should be getting from a sub.
Well, so what does that look like in an actual basis? What is it to you, Rod, or Daniel, feel free. Like, what does that mean in day-to-day activity? Is that them communicating more often or better, or like when I say job setup, what I mean by that is looking out and calling our project manager and saying, hey, I'm going to be done with this area they got me in 3 days. I need that other area. and we're talking large scale jobs. I'm talking schools and hospitals that you're going to be on site for months. What does it mean exactly to you guys?
Yeah, for us, it may be a little different than some other organizations, because our infrastructure is set up where we have project managers that perform specific responsibilities, and most of them don't relate to the job site. We have installation managers that travel to the job site prior to installation, making sure that they go check to see if the job's really going to be ready, making sure they understand the schedule, making sure that the conditions on the job site are conducive to installation, which is a big deal. Whether that means taking moisture testing or going in there and arguing with the contractor about what you have to have for temperature in the building and what the humidity settings need to be. And all that becomes very important in supplying a quality job that you don't have to worry about blowing up down the road, and don't have to worry about involving a manufacturer over something that wasn't acclimated properly. And so we go to pretty good length before we ever put the installer on the job to make sure that we have most of those things organized for them. So what I expect of a good contractor is to kind of pick up where we've set the stage and move through the process of installing and coordinating with the other trades. And even then, I don't leave them on an island. I expect my installation manager on a large project to be there at least once a week, just being there to support him. Here's what most people tend to, they misunderstand. As a flooring contractor, I can't grow my business without good subcontractors or more hourly people, one or the other, correct? And so the bottom line here is this important to me? It's vital to my future that those subcontractors can be efficient with their time and are making a good living. Because if they're not, there's plenty of opportunities for them to go elsewhere. And so you got to kind of be a good partner, and you have to look out for their best interest. And sometimes their interest may have to come above your own, but ultimately, most important thing is the relationship I have with my customer. And I'll do all I can to protect that, but I'm not going to throw the installer under the bus. Instead, we're going to stay engaged so we can steer them away from trouble.
Well, I like how Daniel always calls it trade partners, because that's how, that's really what it should be, is they're partners in getting this project done. And when you set up a project for an installer and they do a good job, it's the day-to-day communication that they have with the GC and the day-to-day schedule that to me is so important. And then not waiting to the end of the till you're out of something to say, hey, I'm out of this, or I can't find any more of this, or whatever the situation may be. Those things do happen on projects. I mean, you set them up as best as you can, but you got timely deliveries. A lot of times we can't just deliver a whole project. Most times we can't deliver a whole project to a job site, and if you did, half your shit would be door stops and
or block off.
Right. Yeah. So it's like these in-time deliveries you try to do. Well, I mean, it's happened to us plenty of times when materials went out, but the warehouse crew didn't grab the transitions, or didn't grab the adhesive.
Yeah.
Or some part that is needed.
Or they take the demo machine and then don't bring the ramp, so they can't even get it off the vehicle.
That sounds like something might have just happened recently.
But those types of things happen.
Those types of things happen, and when they do happen, when your trade partner is looking out ahead a little bit, and not just at that day or that moment of getting the job done, and looking out ahead at the end of the day, and can help the flooring company be more efficient by, hey, I need this. Like that daily communication, I love talking to my crews first thing in the morning. How's it going? You got everything you need? Job set? You got any issues? You see any problems? See any hurdles? No? Okay, great. Call them at the end of the day. How'd it go today? It's like a 5-minute conversation. And we're a little bit different than you, Rod. We don't have as many installation managers. We've got 2 for the entire company, and we got 5 or 6 project managers. So our PMs have to get out to the job sites or do link calls to the job site and walk the job with the guy at the end of the day, or make a phone call. I love doing link calls because I can walk through and pick up anything that I need to have them fix. But at the same time, I see communication as one of those, like, looking out ahead, understanding what the project requirements are and the schedule, and then communicating that back and having that partnership. That's what I enjoy. That's when it seems like it's an enjoyable thing, because I certainly have jobs that are not so enjoyable.
Hey, I see one of my hourly installers signed on, Josh Berlin. Josh is currently running a big project for us in Lexington, a brand new hospital there. And I think he'll tell you himself that it's been quite the learning experience for him. You can be a good installer, and yet when you get into the mix and sometimes the politics, and let alone the logistics and the coordination on a large project like that, it really is something you have to experience to fully understand the complications of it.
Right.
And for me, the best thing is I said it in the first sentence: be proactive, be thinking ahead the entire time. What am I going to need? How am I going to get? And I'll add one other thing. We may look at something as a 2-week look ahead, and we'll put everything down on paper where we're going to be each day with each crew, because we'll have multiple crews sometimes on the same project. So we're scheduling out everybody for 2 weeks. You better have a plan B, because too often your plan A falls apart, and then that crew doesn't have somewhere to go. So I'm always trying to lecture my guys on, it's like, hey, I'm going down the interstate and there's a detour. I know I've got to go around it, but I got to eventually get back. Well, so how you navigate that has a lot to do with how efficient you are and how much money actually flows into your hands. Can you keep yourself busy when it's important to stay busy? Anybody can run a job when nobody's in your way. Figuring out how to navigate when people are in your way and still manage to get the job done and still not sacrifice your production is something that has to be learned.
Right. So when we were on, when I was running one of the last hospital projects, and that's, you were saying, what does that look like day to day? And with us, since we do call, each other partners, and then once you realize that you do get the training in order to be able to charge more, that's where we have worked ourselves up to, right? And with the partners that we work with, what was going on is we essentially take that role of being the project manager in a sense on that job site. I'm the one that has eyes on it all the time. So I'm the one that's going to the meetings. I'm the one that is talking to the GC saying that, hey, we're going to be ready for this area tomorrow. We're going to be ready for this area next week, stuff like that. So in order to get to that point, there's really no other way to get to that point other than, like, Josh is running a project like that. And I mean, baby sister's going through it right now where she's running a project like that. And that's what it is. I mean, sometimes it's myself, when I was on that project, was not doing anything on the floor. I was going to this meeting. I'm going and checking the material. I'm going to make sure that these areas are cleaned. I'm going to make sure that, everything is set up for the crew that is working with me to be successful for the next 2, 3, 4 days.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and
that's the foresight.
Yeah, and those politics are learned. So, I mean, it just takes experience on those type of job sites to know, well, what does the GC foreman expect? And, what are the other trades? How do I have to negotiate with them to get access to it when I need to keep the job moving, right? So there's a lot of just, like, you only learn that by doing it.
Well, this is going to sound egotistical, and so take it with a grain of salt. But, a lot of times I'll go on a job site and discuss a particular scheduling issue or a problem with a superintendent. And there's been times that I've had to stop them in the middle of a conversation and say, I'm trying to help. I really am trying to help. I'm not here to fight with you. I'm not here to battle. I'm trying to come in to help you. And it doesn't hurt the fact that on any given year, I'm associated with 200 commercial projects. How many buildings do you build a year?
Hmm.
And so in relationship to that, I'm seeing a lot more scheduling issues than he does. So there are times that even though I don't want to ever come off arrogant, I am the expert in the room. He needs to listen. And more often than not, if I can gain his trust where he'll listen to me, we can work through most of the problems. But there is a sector of superintendents out there that are kind of old school, and they don't want to listen to anybody else. They want to dictate how things are done. Those jobs never flow as well as the ones where everybody collectively manages the project.
Yeah, I would agree with the statement that there's some old superintendents out there that are kind of stuck in their ways and want to dictate to you when you're going to do something. The problem is they want to dictate to you when you're going to do something and when you're going to finish something. And those types of constraints are what cause project schedule issues and trying to get jobs done. We know what it takes to get our job done, and we know what the durations are on a particular job site. And so I like what you said, Jared, about negotiating. That is a negotiation. Like learning how to talk to people and get what you want is the essence of negotiating. And that's what we as, when I was installing, one of the things that I finally got good at. I was terrible at it in the early days, but I did get better at it and got pretty good at talking to the other trades, understanding where they're going to be, and not making a plan behind the GCs, without the GC, but gaining some information so that I could talk to the superintendent. Hey, I talked to the electrician. They're going to be out of there tomorrow. Can I get in there and get my stuff done before you drop your ceiling tile? Or, I would love them just to be out of our way and we never put floor in before everything's done, but that never happens. So, trying to fit yourself in where you can, and then understanding cure times, especially if you're using some of your products like the moisture mitigation, Jared, or self-leveling, you got cure times and stuff that you got to understand. And they don't always understand that. So bringing that level of expertise, I don't think that's arrogant at all. I think it's absolutely necessary on most jobs.
Yeah, and sometimes you just have to let them know what the trade-offs are. Like most decisions we make in the construction industry have some sort of trade-off, whether it's cure time or workability or finished product or having to add another primer or whatever, right? We always have, if you get a faster cure time, guess what? It's going to cost more money, and that's a trade-off. And, it's the same thing when you're discussing with a foreman on a job site. With the GC, you're talking with him and you're like, well, if you push us off another day, then I don't have the same group of people coming back here. Now I'm going to have two less people because they have to be on a different job. And this is what your trade-off is, right? Like it's going to take an extra 1 day or 2 days or whatever to finish this particular area or do something. And you just got to let them know what the trade-off is for the decision they're going to make. And then you can let them make the call, right? But you have to let them know what the trade-offs are.
Well, it's interesting. We're talking about GCs and we're leaving out the whole construction management segment, which has to be managed even different than the GC model might. Construction managers, unless they're construction management at risk, often are a lot more hands off. And they really do expect you to handle the logistics and the scheduling with the other trades. And they'll set up their meetings and everybody goes in there. And I always get a kick out of it because I say, okay, it's the Friday morning liars club, because and tell stories about what they're going to have done that they have no chance of getting done. But it's important. When I was a young installer, I used to they nicknamed me Ramrod, because when I got on the job site, you just get out of my way. I'm there to do a job. I pushed my way through. I would irritate and piss off plenty of other contractors on the job because I had the mentality that I've got 2 weeks to get done. I'm going to get it done, hell or high water. And I want to tell you what, it was counterproductive. And it took me a long time to find that out, because I kept running into the same contractors And guess what? They remember. And if they didn't like you after you finished the last job with them, they're not going to like you any better when you start the next one. And so it's important that you do kind of look at it more globally, and you look at how can I fit into the bigger picture, and how can I make it work for everybody, not just me. If you show a little bit of kindness and a little bit of generosity, and you're a little bit creative when you run into one of those situations, not every other contractor on the job will duplicate your effort, but the majority of them will buy into it, and they'll treat you with the level of respect that you wouldn't have gotten otherwise. And so this business is about relationships at every level, every level. And so the idea is to go out of your way to try and build that next relationship, because it pays dividends. You know, we get a lot of work that we're not always low. We get it because we've created a situation for ourselves where people want us on the job. So even sometimes when it's a hard bid, we're able to kind of navigate our way through to be in position to win that job. And it's because people want us. And I think that's important. And so as we're talking about CDI's business philosophy, you have to understand that has to funnel all the way down through our crews. They have to share that. They have to demonstrate they understand that. That sometimes is a complicated issue.
Yeah, and I like what you said there about you know, having relationships all the way through. You know, there's plenty of times as a flooring contractor, we don't have booms on jobs all the times, or lulls, or telehandlers, whatever you guys want to call them. They got many names. But man, can you make a buddy with the mason that's on site for so long that'll let you use his, maybe buy the gas or a 6-pack of beer. And I don't know how many times I've negotiated that deal.
Yeah, it's a case now. No more 6-pack.
Yeah. Inflation.
Yeah.
Beerflation.
So, yeah, you know, that relationship is what those relationships with your subs, with your GC, with everybody, the ultimate goal, and what we try to get our people to understand, and what I implore, like on this podcast, is understand that to be successful in any business, you have to have the customer's needs at in front of you. Like that's got to be your number one concern, is dealing with the customer's needs. The problem that we have in construction, and particularly by the time it gets down to flooring, is those customers' needs are sometimes unachievable, and it's getting down to crunch time. I've got a big project we're doing right now. One of my managers is fighting on where the owner wanted a whole another wing of this condo project opened up at the same time, and it wasn't on the schedule. The owner wants it. The GC didn't want to say no, you know, all this stuff. And then that just flows down to you. And now they expect that you got like 30 guys just sitting in the wings somewhere doing nothing, ready to just deploy to their job site. And while we have some mechanisms on being able to pull some of that stuff off, it can be very complicated to do so. And that's just part of why this business can be a very tough business, but it can also be very rewarding when you're able to get something like that done for a client, and they don't forget it very quickly if you do pull it off for them.
Well, I will tell you that one of the things that I'm not ashamed to say I utilize it on a regular basis when I'm getting kind of pushed by a contractor and they're not giving me the space they need, but they want more manpower. And I think we've all lived that experience too. They get me more people. Well, where am I going to put them? You know,
you need more guys.
You need more guys. I got to get this area done. And so a lot of times we'll get more creative. And there are times that I have sacrificed, and the guys that work for me probably don't always appreciate it, but I put them in second shift where they didn't have to work at the same time the others did, so they could be more efficient. And yeah, oftentimes I have to put the bill for that. Sometimes I can pass it along to the contractor, but you got to get to the point where whatever expectation is reasonable is somehow achieved. And so sometimes the definition of reasonable gets a little skewed, but
yeah,
you better figure out what that is. And so I will tell you that I'll often tell an installer or tell a contractor that bringing more manpower is not the right answer. And we'll work through the whole scenario, and sometimes we'll come up with a whole different plan. But I'm never afraid to tell my healthcare customers that, guys, if you're not ready when you're supposed to be ready, these are sheet vinyl people. They're in high demand. If they go somewhere else, I can't promise you they're going to be back here when you need them. So you better find a way to be ready. And you'd be surprised how frequently that works. I always tell people, we've all lived it. The elevator people can show up anytime they want. Isn't that amazing how that works? Elevator people can show up anytime they want. And everybody accommodates them, because at least here in Kentucky, there's only 3 elevator companies. So they're pretty high demand. And so they just work with them. And I keep saying, if you can accommodate them, certainly with a little planning, you can accommodate the rest of us. We just need to turn around and do something that most GCs are not accustomed to doing. And that is to manage the schedule from day one, not once the interior trades begin their work.
Yeah, we talked about this, before too. And it's like they're always like, you guys can work at night and stuff like that, when it's like, no, why don't you just make these people that are in our way work at night? And they don't like those conversations either.
No, they never do. They never do. And I think that's not a first choice. That's kind of a last resort. But if you really have to find a way to get it done, you've got to get past saying no, and you got to say, yes, I don't know how, but I'll figure it out. And that's kind of what we do sometimes, is just simply say, I've got to figure it out.
Yeah, we can hear you, Jose.
Holy smokes, I'm back. I've been muted this whole time.
And it's been, I know you well enough. It's just been killing you.
You sound like a mouse, but
I have so many notes right now. Yeah, it is killing me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, very great either.
What I unfortunately for Jose, who does always bring the heat during the huddle here, is we're nearing the end. So I want to kind of distill all the conversation down into like best practices. So I'll fire off and then we'll just go around. I would say best practices for the flooring company side: set your jobs up correctly, like understand your project if you're a project manager, know your schedule, and then I am a very firm believer in having kickoff, like pre-construction meetings on site, going through the job and really understanding what the schedule is, what the demands are, and then giving them good ways to communicate back and forth with both video capabilities and text messaging. Let them know what the best way to get a hold of you is, what I'm trying to say, as well as the way you like to communicate. So to me, it's communication and project setup. How about you, Rod?
Well, I think this is more philosophical, but I will tell you that I think one of the most important things that you can do on a large job is find a way to get the superintendent to like you. Okay. Really, really important thing to do. I tell our installation managers all the time, hey, if you got the opportunity, take him to lunch. Figure out what his candy is. Figure out what it takes to get him on your side.
I knew I went about it the wrong way.
You went about the wrong way? Okay, well, anyhow. So along that lines, I think that communication has to be a daily thing. I think the more you're engaged in setting the schedule up and maintaining the schedule and modifying it as needed, the more successful you'll be as a flooring contractor. Now, that doesn't mean you're going to have a voice with every superintendent. Sometimes it doesn't work. Some of the best advice that I think I can give after doing this for 40 years still is not going to work every time. But I think it'll work the majority of the time. And if you get incremental improvements across the board, I think you'll find your life is a hell of a lot easier. So I always say, be a problem solver, don't be a problem. That superintendent is probably dealing with 10, 12, 14 other trades, and they're all coming to him with problems. When you become the problem solver, you become a valuable part of his team. And and I'm not saying that to be cliche. I really
No, I
can't.
love that saying. Be a problem solver and not the problem.
Yeah.
How about you,
I'm gonna try
Daniel?
to, let me try
Or
to go first.
Jose, let's get you in here.
Yeah, let me try to go because I got to get some talking off my chest here. So, 100% agree with the do your best to get the GC on your side. I agree with that right there. Another couple things I'm going to touch base on a few of the items that you guys spoke about was communication is key. In order for you to have a plan B and for the plan B to work out, you have to be able to communicate. Sometimes for me, it was harder to have a wide open job than it was to have a cluttered job because now we're ahead of schedule and my plan B is more important to have into place. When I had 3 weeks planned for a project, a month, now we're done in 2 weeks. What am I going to do now? Communication for that and updating every day. Um, the getting the rest of the contractors on your side, like you said, Paul, definitely buy a case of beer, help them out, buy the crew lunch, buy if you're working at a facility where their employees are unloading you, buy them lunch, do something that's going to be remembered, stand out, separate yourself. That's that's really all I got, guys, and be be ready to get comfortable being uncomfortable. That's about all you can do.
How about you, Daniel and Jared? You guys.
I'll let Jared go first.
From a manufacturer's perspective, I would just say like utilize your manufacturer reps if, especially difficult situations where I've seen contractors say word for word what I say to either an owner's rep or a GC rep, and they'll be nodding and completely agree when I say it, and when the contractor said it, they thought that he was trying to rip him off with a change order. So utilize your manufacturer reps, whether it's the adhesive rep, the floor covering rep, the prep rep like Utseen. Use those reps to help your cause. Like we're industry experts as well, and sometimes they'll listen to us when they won't necessarily listen to the flooring contractor on what's necessary and what change orders are necessary. If somebody like from the manufacturer level is advocating for the change you guys have.
I like that advice, and it probably can't be overstated because I want to tell you the number of times that I've argued with a contractor about job site conditions and then got the manufacturer involved to come in and say, you're not going to have a warranty. You're not going to do that. We're not.
Yeah.
It makes all the difference in the world. It really does.
Yeah, they listen to the manufacturer reps when they think that the flooring contractor is just trying to rip them off. And it's like I get on a job site, I'm like, I'm not saying a word different than what the flooring contractor already told them. But since it's coming out of my mouth, somehow it all of a sudden has some sort of credence behind it. And they just look at it differently because they think our motivations are different, or, we're the ones sitting behind the warranty. So, if they want that backing, they have to do what we say. So,
and I'm right there, like, because this is kind of a all-encompassing thing with me going last, because with what Rod said, getting on their good side, sometimes getting on their bad side can end you up on that good side, because that's happened multiple times where I'm like, nope, this is what I'm going to do. And then I just do it. And then they come back and they're like, wow, you guys got that done really fast. And I said, I told you that. Now, if you have this next thing ready, it's going to be the same thing.
Yeah.
So that builds that trust with that contractor. And then it's crazy because that is the same contractor where I was on a job site and we were having issues and I called Jared. So being that problem solver, I called the rep and I'm like, Jared, this is what's kind of happening. What's going on? What do you recommend? He recommends something. I go back to the GC saying, I already talked to the rep. This is what we have to do. And being that problem solver. So it's kind of, you got to do all these things all at the same time. And you have to have the mindset to where you can handle this kind of stuff. And
Yeah,
it takes a lot. It takes a lot and a lot of time to get to where you're comfortable doing everything, but you do need that time.
Yeah.
Well, I would say that to kind of close us out here, we talked a lot about the flooring, from a flooring company standpoint. If you're an installer on here watching, I would say understand that don't take everything personal from the GCs and these things. Don't, to me, it's like you got a job to do. You have the skill set to do that job, and don't there's gruff superintendents out there, especially you young guys probably need to hear this. There's gruff superintendents out there. Don't take everything so personal. You have a goal. Keep your goal in mind, like for that project, and communicate with your flooring company if you're working with one, and try to remember that you have a daily, objective that you want to meet. And so that communication that keeps being brought up is important for us to communicate with our GCs, but it's also important for you guys, the subcontractors out there, to communicate well with your flooring company. Everything from material deliveries to getting the product installed to site conditions, we're just not there every day. Even the best of us can't be there every day. So good communication between us when we're working together will help both of our lives go a lot easier. And then last but not least is when we, from a flooring contractor standpoint, when I'm dealing with GCs, I like, what you said, Daniel, about sometimes it's not, just sometimes doing something they don't like is getting them on your side. I always look at it like, what is the best for the project? And sometimes I have to force that. What is best for the project? Not just me, but actually for the project and for the end user.
That is correct. I agree with that as well, Paul.
Real quick, just do what you say you're going to do.
Yeah, that's a good policy.
Oh my God, if you just do what you say you're going to do, it's like magic, because all of a sudden they don't worry about you no more. You're the one guy out there they don't have to worry about. So just deliver what you promise.
I think
promise, deliver.
Yeah, we can cut out this whole podcast and just do what Rod just said. Just do what you say you're going to do. That's it. Yeah. That's the whole podcast right there.
Well, the podcast has come to an end, guys. Thanks everybody for joining us today. Hey, help us out here. Give us a like, a subscribe, comment. Get the word out. The bottom line is we don't, have a lot of algorithmic know-how. We need you guys to share the show, talk about the show, and get the viewership up. That's what's going to show the platforms that you like what we talk about. As Daniel has at the bottom, if you have a topic that you want us to cover, send it to Ashlyn@gocarrera.com, and we'll get you on the podcast. Maybe at the very least, we could talk about a subject that is important to you. So we like to get on here and rap kind of like the, just a fireside chat kind of thing. And we hope you guys enjoy that platform. So thank you for joining us. We'll see you guys next week. 3 p.m. Central.
We'll see them this week because we're going to be at the summit starting. Well, we'll be there tomorrow, but then I think it starts.
Yeah, we are going to be shooting an overtime from the summit in Dalton, Georgia. Take that QR code if you can make it down there. I know it's kind of last minute, but if we've implored you guys to get down to these conferences, because what Rod was speaking about earlier about networking and getting, and this business being about relationships, you will meet people there that have been through what you are going to go through, I should say, and can help you navigate some of those pitfalls. Trust me, if you get to the summit or you get to CFI's convention that we go to every time, CFI and FCICA joint convention, those are where you meet the people that can help you get better at your craft and get better at how you approach your business and grow your company in a sustainable way, and maybe avoid some of the pitfalls we were talking about here early on when we all got started.
Yeah, thanks Elena for passing stickers out.
Only solutions.
Yeah. All right, thank you guys.
I appreciate it.
All right, thanks for joining us, Rod. Jared, thanks for joining us, and we will talk to you guys this week and next week. Adios.
See ya.
See ya.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.